Hey, so thank you all for listening today. My talk, I think it dovetails on and addresses a number of concepts that were already kind of implicitly talked about at different points yesterday. For example, the tension between treating organisms as individuals or lineages. The life cycle versus treating organisms categorically, and other dichotomy, such as token and type, which I think has been implicit in this, and whether or not making distinctions in one way or another is ontological in some way, or if it's just pragmatic, or these kinds of questions. So, in general, it has to do with the role of the phenotype in development and in evolution. And a move away from kind of genocentric conceptions, which dominated most of the 20th century. So I'm also coming from that vein, but I'm looking specifically at extinction as an experience. And I say that as an experience because I'm interested in the phenomenology of extinction, like how extinction appears and how it appears differently for different types of organisms. And my focus is on the appearance of extinction in a great ancient tree called the Gokmai Bak. And this is a story I'm going to read to you that is based on an experience that I had about 14 years ago, I suppose it is now. So thank you for listening. I lived for several years on the edge of Huaygapu, a stream that tumbled and ambled from the northern side of an enormous extinct volcano in Laos. With a few others, we had set out on the mission of turning a compacted and gravelly piece of land, formerly housing road and construction material, into an ecological learning community within a diverse polyculture. From the gnarly edge of the plateau to the rice-paddied Se Basin River, local people's farmland surrounded us, an inspiring labyrinth of coffee gardens, bananas, beans, sweet potatoes, rice, and dozens of species of fruit trees. From all sides, however, encroached industrial plantations of rubber and cassava, some tens of thousands of hectares in size and managed by foreign corporations. As this all too modern drama played out, just upstream from my bamboo hut, only a few hectares in size, a pocket of forest held on. I'll always remember the time I first encountered the tree. It's the earliest days of our project. I maneuver through the forest with several government officials and NGO workers. We discuss community-based management possibilities for this remaining piece of land. The officials size up its omissions, commenting on how the valuable hardwoods have already been taken. I don't understand enough of the ecology to see the loss. I just feel happy to wander in the lush green layers of jungle. We creep deeper into the forest, and a giant appears before us. Our pace slows. Speaking, if necessary, hushes to whisper. We stand under its great canopy. I look up into twisting, sprawling branches, which yearn for every which region of the bright blue sky above. It is Gokmai Bak. The tree, I estimate, is likely 6 hugs in circumference. The wood, my companions estimate, is probably a few $100s in value. It's satisfactory, I'm told, but not nearly the quality of Gokmai Du or Gokkan Hua. but a liana, itself easily a foot in diameter, winds itself up the tree like a spiral staircase. And a staircase it is, because at just that moment, some children appear and ascend. A boy of 6 named Wee, who sometimes lights a fire for me to boil my morning coffee, climbs amongst them. As Wee appears and disappears and reappears over and over again in his orbiting ascent, he tells us he comes here all the time. Of course he does, I think. We ponder in silence and take stabs estimating the age of the tree as we walk away. As night falls, we huddle around an oil lamp in a smoky room and hatch a plan to protect the forest. Suspending us, the woven bamboo floor creaks and bounces, and our shadows dance together across the woven bamboo walls. A few years later, I was teaching in a community class when I heard some distant chainsaws buzzing away. I didn't think much of it. Cutting trees down here is pervasive enough. But by the 4th day of continuous cutting, the sounds began to haunt my dreams. I was fearful, but dared not ask. But as the buzzing continued, I broke my silence. "Gone," the villager said. The chiefs cut it down." Trying to hide the trembles that overcame my body, I muttered, "But why?" His answer would throw me into sleepless nights of confusion and grief. He wanted money to fix the village temple. Once all the gokmai back are delimbed and sawn, planked and beamed, a few saplings may linger here and there in the remaining bits of forest or along stream beds. Each of these will be hacked down well ahead of interfering with the rows of heliophiles below, but perhaps not before bearing and returning seeds to the earth. In this way, the species may persist indefinitely in a new lifestyle. By all normal scientific accounts, Gokmaidu would not be considered extinct. It may not even be considered threatened. I might hang my hopes that in this scenario, the species at least remains capable in principle of growing once again its giant, lumbering limbs. But something in this account is distasteful. Extinction follows a very different course for big trees. It seems the concept of extinction's been held hostage by a view that places more importance on genotype than on phenotype. But it is to a phenotype that I kept returning, as it is with a phenotype that I fell in love. It is a phenotype that may never again exist for children like we to climb, and whose gentle limbs may never again induce quietude amongst chattery development officials. And so I find myself dreaming of a concept of extinction that brings the organism back to life. On the face of it, this may not seem like such a crazy idea. Most conservationists currently follow a genocentric conception of evolution framed by the modern evolutionary synthesis. Evolution, from this perspective, as we all know, is characterized as the intergenerational change of gene frequencies in a population. The modern synthesis has been very successful, but it's an incomplete model of evolution. And it's facing a shakeup by diverse organism and systems-centered theories and approaches, including developmental plasticity theory and niche construction theory. The broad commonality underlying many of these approaches is the claim that evolutionary process cannot be understood without the positive contribution that organisms make and that systems of organisms make as well as causal agents. If evolutionary theory needs to transcend genocentrism, maybe extinction theory does too. For example, according to developmental plasticity theory, organisms create novel and plastic responses to local conditions, which themselves have evolutionary consequential effects. If organisms are able to explore phenotypic possibilities, in a very real sense, this means that the environment's enabling them to reach further into their evolutionary potential. One sign of a healthy population of a species might be the extent to which its different members are phenotypically diverse, able to negotiate bountiful conditions, and to respond to them by creating unique, diverse conditions in turn. Organisms, West Eberhard reminds us, forward evolution, not genes. But Gokmaidu, cast to the edges, now only offers a diminished aspect of its potential to the world. Evolution is going extinct, even if the genes are not. Surely part of the reason we're held hostage to a genocentric conception of extinction is because the productivity of analytic reduction has been emphasized and exploited by our globalized modern culture. But I suspect there's more to it than that. I wonder if we're also dominated by animal-centric perspectives that render people relatively impervious to the important lessons that the growth rate, the sessile nature, the age, and the phenotypic diversity of plants provide towards our understanding this age of great loss. For example, all mammals and most animals reach adulthood and sexual maturity fairly quickly and then stop growing. Even the late-blooming blue whale's calves gain 200 pounds a day and reach adulthood in 10 years. So if all blue whales adults were exterminated, we might be comforted that their lumbering forms will loll again in the dark ocean soon. But while Gokmai Bak also might produce seeds in 10 years, it is human lifetimes away from connecting different trees together for monkeys and squirrels, for providing a solid base for climbers like our child Wee, and for the liana, and for mustering flecks of sublimity in hardened hearts. Unlike many animals who may have stopped breeding before they physically disappear from the earth, some plants may disappear well before they stop breeding. The extinction of phenotypes, not genotypes, means acknowledging the loss of particular others. Plants reveal the extinction of uniqueness because they're sessile. Encountering an endangered wild animal in the forest is rare, fleeting, and exciting. Wild animals, even those not endangered, only make their appearance with great discretion, giving the impression that their numbers are few and their presence a great gift. But giant trees are hardly so furtive. It is easy to see an endangered plant, provided one knows where to look. Not only is it easy to see, it's easy to keep re-seeing. I could go back to the same tree over and over again, familiarizing myself with it deeply, getting to know how it shakes in the wind, dapples sunlight, drops its leaves, drips its resin, and domesticates its insects. This difference brings with it the capacity for an increased intimacy and care, but also a danger. There's the possibility that we don't take endangered plants seriously, because phenomenologically they don't seem endangered. Their presence as a feature in the world is viscerally assured. They're not fleeting. And facts are often at mercy to our senses. Nevertheless, I learned to love Art Gökmayback's uniqueness, as I learned to love an individual human, and with time, the idiosyncratic, in beings themselves to be sure, but also in relationships, is given space to flourish. The ephemeral presence of wild animals invites the human onlooker to treat them as categories. A fact so obvious in the birder circles that I frequent. However, because plants respond to their environments through changes in trophic growth, the unique personality of different plants is manifest in ways more obvious than is possible in vicarious encounters with swooping birds or hopping squirrels. A plant maintains a history of its responses and its circumstances, recording in visual trace its own autobiography. For this reason, even casual encounters with plants teach humans that each life and death in the biosphere is singular and unprecedented. We speak of the extinction of individual species within the category of a genus or a family. We speak of the extinction of varieties within a species. What plants project into lived experience is the awareness that individuality is a property of all life all the way down. And with this, the insight that extinction is both an idiographic and a nomothetic event. We treat extinction as an event involving the loss of a category, but it can also be thought of as the loss of a unique event. This event may be particular being, but it might be a particular knoll or ridge or pond or moor. Owing to the particular ways of living, plants reveal and contribute to the identity of these places. With this combination, they show to humans that with a lost plant, a place is lost. A place is irreplaceable. So that's an excerpt from a chapter which I recently published. And it draws together some of the themes, I hope, which are implicit and coming out in this conference so far. Thank you so much for listening.